Alright YouTube, welcome to another episode of Bert's Bike. Today we do the 500 mile owner review on my 300L. Alright, let's jump into it. So this is just an update on my first review. Since then, I've been able to take the bike on and off road, dropped it, installed some accessories, got more coming on the way, but I just want to point out maybe some things I noticed and some things that you might like to know. I'm about to do the 600 mile oil change, so stay tuned for that video. Let's just start from the top down. So one thing I've noticed with this bike is that it's just a really easy and pleasant bike to own. I feel like it's a true 50-50 dual sport, and it seems to do everything well. So let's just start with the aesthetics, fit and finish. Overall, the fit and finish of the bike is really good for a sub $6,000 motorcycle, in my opinion. There are a few little things that I'll just touch on that you might like to know. So first off, the handlebars look really good, and I really like the ergonomics. They seem to put your everyday riding position in a really good spot. If you were to do a lot of off-roading and standing, you might want to put some risers or get a different set of bars to lift them. I have on order the Pro Taper CR High Bend. According to the forum I'm on, that would be the closest bar that Pro Taper makes to the original sweep. I don't really want to change up the ergonomics at all. I just want to keep the same setup with a sturdier bar. And another reason why I'm changing it is that these bar ends over here don't really accept your standard bark busters or a service bars. So you're going to have to either drill these out, or you're going to have to put a separate set of bars on it. So I opted for the separate set of bars, and while I'm at it, I'm going to do the grips too to Pro Taper pillow tops. Alright, moving on. The headlight, I think, is adequate at night. Coupled with these indicators seem to illuminate well. If you are in a situation where you're in deep woods and there's no light at all, you probably would need some auxiliary lights, or at least upgrade the main headlight. Here is another gripe of mine, the seat. Luckily, this strap here is removable. So there's two bolts under the seat, which you can unscrew and remove the strap. I'm going to leave it on for now. Okay, and another thing too is to get these body panels off. There's a push rivet right under here that you have to get to on each side to pull the body panels off. Now, doing it is easy enough, but if you have a luggage rack here, anything other than the standard OEM mounts, you're going to have to literally unscrew your luggage rack every time, and lining up these holes here with the seat is a little bit of a pain to line them up correctly every time. It just is kind of fiddly, but anything you got to do under the seat, airbox, take these panels off. You have to undo your luggage rack and or the stock lash points. I really do like this toolbox. It seems like it'll have enough room for some tools and some things I'll need. The clutch lever is amazingly smooth and easy to pull. I can do it with one finger. Maybe I can even do it with my pinky. Yep. The only gripe I have about it is just kind of floppy, but that's the way it's supposed to be, I guess. Leave me a comment if that's supposed to be otherwise, but it just seems kind of floppy. Alright, moving on to the other gripe of mine is the frame paint. So I do like this frame paint. The color looks really good. I think the bike looks really awesome, but it is kind of weak. So I've noticed a lot of reviews of guys that have lots of wear marks here. So when I go under the bike, there's a couple of stone chips and stuff like that that I've already taken some of the paint off. And although the weld joints look pretty good, there's some spots that have a slight little surface or porous rusting. I noticed, you probably can't tell on camera, but there's a little bit of rust dots here already. And I've only washed the bike once, and I've only dropped it one time. There was some water involved. But it wasn't in there for very long, and should have dried right up. The lever here seems to do its job when it's folded. When I dropped the bike, it did push in and up, and I guess gave me a scratch in my casing here. But I did not have to bend it back, so it was under pressure pushing towards the engine casing, but I did not have to bend it back, so it's a pretty tough lever. Another thing to watch out for is if you're going to put a bash plate on it, make sure that you have some clearance between the frame, because when I put this bash plate on, and a lot of others are reporting that it's actually pressed up against the frame, but not evenly. It's pressed up. Mine was pressed up back here and on the right side. So a lot of people put rubber stripping or closed cell foam. I definitely like having some clearance between the frame, just in case anything were to hit it, there's some room and it doesn't just transfer the shock into the frame. I put some nylon washers in the back mounts, which push the bash plate out just enough to get that clearance correct. What else? Oh, the foot pegs. The foot pegs, thank God, from the factory are nice and wide. I'm not sure if this is true with most dual sports, but on my other bikes, the frame pegs, you can actually remove them. On this bike, they're welded on. And I'm not sure if all dual sports are like this or all dirt bikes are like this. But what happens is the foot peg part here that stops it ends up kind of, I don't know if you could see that there, but it starts wearing away the frame paint. And that's just from riding the bike normally and standing on it, but whatever. Okay, moving on. It's widely known that the suspension on this bike is on the spongy side. You can literally just push the bike down with one finger. It really isn't a problem if you're riding just mostly on road. I did notice taking it off-road that the back end, when you're giving it some beans, it does feel a little vague and a little smushy, which is nothing crazy, but I don't really plan on doing a lot of hardcore off-roading. I just like to do maybe some light trail riding and camping with this bike, so I should be alright with that suspension. It's definitely something I could upgrade in the future. And then the last thing, these tires, I think they're a good road tire and good with anything dry. When I took my bike off-road, it's really slick. I noticed that the back end did feel a little vague, and I'm not sure if that's a combination of the tire and the suspension, or both. When I was doing that river crossing, when I dropped the bike, the back end did slide out from under me. It was a water crossing, so I know that, you know, all bets are off at that point. But it did feel like the back end just gave way on that. So I'm off-roading probably 70-30. So 70 on-road, 30% off-road. Like I said, just trail riding and mostly commuting and camping with this bike. You know, and maybe that's even a little generous to say that I'm off-road 30%. But when I change these tires out, let me know what you recommend down there, and then I'll check them out. Maybe I'll put those on. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention was if the tank here, I did notice a little bit of rust forming under the tank. It's just some surface rust. I did hit it with some WD-40 and looks like it got rid of it. But I just noticed little things like that about the bike. Again, this is a sub $6,000 bike, so in my opinion the fit and finish is very good for this price point.
I haven't had any detrimental issues with the bike, but I've had this one small issue that's come up every now and then. When I come back from a longer ride, sometimes I'll get a drop or two of coolant from the coolant weep hole. I've been told by the dealer and some members on the forum that this is normal and it should straighten itself out in a few 100 miles. Apparently this is a pretty common issue for bikes that have been sitting in a warehouse for an extended period of time. The dealer did tell me to contact them if the problem keeps persisting, and they would order the replacement parts to fix this issue. I'm not really worried about it, but if I get closer to 1,000 miles and it's still there, I'll definitely call them and get the warranty work done.
Okay, so when I was off-roading the bike, I did a lot of stuff in first gear, and that seemed to be very aggressive. For stuff like this, I prefer to be in second gear and just be feathering in and out the clutch, just for slow speed, gravel, loose road. It's not a bad thing, it's just a characteristic of the bike. Alright, so just riding this bike around is just a joy. It just feels really good, really planted, but really, really nimble at the same time. If you're not used to a bike like this, it could feel a little wallowy, so that's probably due to a lot of things, the weight, the geometry, whatever. But I do love how agile it is, and I think if you're riding this bike in the city, it's going to be really easy to maneuver and get around. One thing I really like too is the mirrors. They seem to be in the right spot. I position the mirrors to where I can see somewhat behind me, so I'll always have a little bit of my shoulder probably right there and right there. But nothing crazy. For now, these are doing really good. One thing I should say is if you're planning on off-roading this bike, or even pushing the bike to its limits, you definitely want to get some hand guards for this. I did bend my clutch lever on my last off-roading experience, and I did end up bending it back with a lighter and a rubber mallet and a block of wood. So let's talk about another reason why I love this bike. It gets incredible gas mileage. I've been getting in the low 70s, 72, 73, 74, and on 2 fill-ups now. I thought it was a fluke the first time, but I actually got 81 point something, 81, 82 miles to the gallon in a couple of fill-ups. You know, when you're really pushing the bike in the higher gears, you're definitely going to see a reduction in gas mileage to maybe high 60s or whatever, but I mean, you'd really have to try hard or just be riding this bike like crazy to get terrible gas mileage, or just be wide open throttle all the time. If you're obeying the law to some degree, you should be alright. Seat comfort. I think the seat is fine. When I first got it, I definitely rode it 120 something miles from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Nashville in one day on a brand new seat, and it didn't really get that uncomfortable. Definitely like to take breaks at about 50, 60 miles, but I can go about 100 miles without having to stop. And this cluster and this fairing over here, that's just enough to break up the wind around me to where it's not just pummeling my chest. The weight of this bike, it's a light bike by road standards, but off-road, it can catch you off guard. A lot of people say it's still on the heavy side for a dirt bike, and after dropping it that one time, even though it's lighter than the vast majority of road bikes out there, off-road, it's still a bear, especially if you're on uneven or loose ground. So another thing I was worried about with this bike was the power, and I have to report I'm very pleased with the power. So 300 cc's, not a whole lot of cc's, you know, whatever, it does great. So what are my final thoughts on this bike? I think it's a great bike. I think it would be an amazing first bike for a lot of people. If you already have a road bike, like I do, I have a cafe bike, I think this is a perfect second bike for you. If you're not planning on doing any highway really, or long trips, or just tooling around the city, I think this would be a great only bike for somebody who just wants, you know, like the name says, a dual sport, do it all. I hope you guys have found these videos on this bike pretty informative. I think if you're on the fence about getting one of these bikes and can afford it, just go out and get it. Alright guys, this is Bert's Bike. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I'll catch you in the next one.